Foundation's first webinar. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it, and we really want this to be a good experience for you and hopefully an added convenience if you can't make it to the in-person bidders meeting, but also have the opportunity to learn about our grant-making priorities for this grant cycle. I'm going to introduce the staff that's on the call today here at the Foundation. We have myself, my name is Natalie Garcia. I'm a program officer. We also have Sandra Flores, our senior program officer.
Hello, everyone.
We have Sarah Soberall, who is our foundation support specialist for programs.
Good morning.
And we have Puneet Kaur, who is our foundation support specialist for the entire office.
Hello, everyone.
So you also have the capability to raise your hand and type in a question if you have one throughout the webinar. You're all currently on mute, and we will be doing about a 45-minute presentation and allow about 15 minutes at the end for question and answers. But you don't have to wait till the end of the webinar to submit a question, and we can try to field them as we go. If you would like it answered earlier, if you just don't want to forget, please feel free to use that raise your hand function and type in your question. Also, some other notes. A recording of this webinar will be available within a few days after today, and that'll be on our website. And we have a handout with highlights from the webinar that's currently posted on our grant-making page for Human Services. So please go visit that and see if there's any tips in there that you would like to remember when applying. So really quickly, before we get started in the priorities, we want to take a quick poll of who's on the call. So if you could please type in and answer these two questions really quickly, we'd really appreciate it. So if you could just share what type of grant you're considering applying for.
All right, we have about 70% voted. We'll give a few more seconds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it.
So it looks like most of you are interested in applying for capacity building. We have some that are interested in teen pregnancy, a few in both, and a couple not sure. Thank you for sharing this information with us. It's helpful for us to know who's interested in what grant cycle. Okay, we have one more question, and I promise then we'll get moving on. We want to know if this is your organization's first time applying to the foundation or if you've applied in the past. So if you could please answer this question, we'd appreciate it.
All right, just waiting for a couple more people. Okay.
All right, so it looks like most of you are familiar with us and haven't applied in the past. Thank you. It's very helpful for us to know that. We will be going over information that will be useful to organizations that have applied in the past, but also this is your first time applying as well. And please feel free to ask questions if this is your first time applying, if we have not covered something in that, or if something still remains unclear about the process. So now we're going to go ahead and get into the goals to fund for this year for the Human Services and Teen Pregnancy Prevention Grant Cycles. Let's go on to the next slide. So for Human Services Grant Cycle, this typically, as always, the Foundation has focused on organizational capacity building with a focus on board governance, and in the past it was organizational leadership development or fiscal management. This year we have added the component of community leadership development to allow organizations to apply for funds to train and work on leadership development with community members that aren't necessarily within the organization's leadership structure. This was a change that was made this year because of becoming a little bit more familiar with particularly organizations in rural areas who don't have a very robust internal organizational leadership structure to develop, that actually a lot of the work was being done by organized community members and volunteers. So we wanted to allow organizations to be able to utilize that potential for leadership in their community, and that might be the vast majority of where the leadership potential is in the community. So that's just the small change and expansion from last year. It allows for organizational and community leadership development this year in the grant. There's $120,000 available, and the grant range is $5,000 to $25,000. This is increased from last year. Last year, I believe the grant range was $1,000 to $15,000. We wanted to give organizations the opportunity to apply for slightly larger grants. Also new this year is a possibility of one organization receiving a 2-year capacity building grant for up to $30,000. It doesn't have to be for $30,000. It can be up to $30,000, but we wanted to give an opportunity to for grantees to utilize a slightly larger timeline because capacity building efforts we've learned sometimes take a little bit longer than a year. So if it would be beneficial to your organization to maybe have a 2-year grant period, maybe you apply for use $10,000 the first year, $10,000 the second year. This will give you a larger time frame to do maybe a little bit longer term, more substantial capacity building. So this is something the committee felt might be beneficial, and we wanted to see how it turns out this year, and it will inform our future grant making guidelines. So we've also added some selection criteria for the Human Services grant cycle. This is new this year as well. So some things that will cause an applicant's proposal to receive a higher ranking, again, these are not required, but they will make you more competitive, or activities that support and align with existing community initiatives. If you've been kind of attending any meetings about different things going on, either with building healthy communities, promised neighborhoods, the community transformation grant with the county. The foundation is also involved in the grade level reading campaign. There's a lot of different initiatives going on and a lot of time-limited opportunities to kind of capitalize on those existing efforts. You don't need to be formally involved, or you don't need to be a formal partner in any of these initiatives, but demonstrating knowledge of what's going on in the community. We want you to be familiar with similar work so you can align with those partners that are aiming for the same goals. To hopefully get a greater impact than you would if you kind of were just engaged in your individual efforts. So if you can demonstrate knowledge or key partnerships that you have, we would really like you to include those in your proposal. Another selection criteria that we've included is serving unincorporated communities. This is kind of because unincorporated communities lack a lot of governmental support that cities have. So we've noticed that there's a lack of resources in a lot of these communities. So if you are serving an unincorporated community, please include that in your application, and it will cause you to receive a higher ranking. We also have added serving low-income communities and communities of color as a priority because they are often the communities of greatest need. So that's a conclusion for the Human Services portion of the Goals to Fund. Again, we will take questions at the end, or if you would like to type in a question now, we can try to field it as we go if we get a short break. Now we're going to move on to the Teen Pregnancy Prevention grant cycle. So this grant cycle, we have $250,000 available for programs in Fresno, Tulare, Madera, Merced, Mariposa, and Kings counties. This is the six-county regional footprint of the foundation, so services need to be provided in these areas for teen pregnancy prevention grants. It's also the same for human services as well. The grant range is $10,000 to $100,000, and grant requests for $10,000 to $50,000 are 1-year grants, and 2-year grant requests must be for $100,000. They can't be for $70,000 or $80,000. Some of the focus for the teen pregnancy prevention grants is to fund programs that reduce teen pregnancy by providing reproductive health services, sexuality education, and other youth development programs aimed at reducing teen pregnancy, and youth development initiatives that demonstrate working with young people and their families in a way that allows them to lead and or develop personal initiatives. We will also fund reproductive health training, and development of staff and volunteers, training and education of evidence-based curriculum, gender-inclusive and gender-appropriate training and education for staff and volunteers, youth conferences that include reproductive health, parent engagement programs, and peer outreach teams. This is the eligibility criteria for teen pregnancy prevention. By eligibility criteria, these are the factors that are required. The programs must be medically accurate, comprehensive, and free from bias. They must be gender inclusive and appropriate. They must be linguistically and culturally competent for the target population, and they must be evidence-based. If you're using a curriculum that is new, we do ask that you share it with us so we can review it. And also the program must provide referrals to a family planning service provider. This is evidenced through a letter of cooperation you submit to us. And we also have a list of family packed clinics on our website for your reference if you need to find a service provider. On the next slide, we'll have some selection criteria. And again, this has the same function as it does for the Human Services Grant Cycle. This will let you know how your application will receive a higher ranking for the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Grant. Some of the programs that have a high impact and focus on outcomes have a service provider referral system already developed, have a youth development focus, involve parents and significant adults, and define outcomes well. We're also interested in the sustainability of programs and the geographic area that you're serving. In the Central Valley, I'm sure many of you are aware that we have certain zip codes where teen pregnancy prevention rates are significantly higher than the rest of the state. If you are serving any of these hotspots, we would like you to certainly share that with us so that we know that you're serving an area of high need. We also consider whether you're partnering with organizations who are doing related work. Okay. Some more selection criteria that we have, again, is knowledge of other organizations doing related work and, you know, if there's a partnership in place, how you're going to leverage each other's resources and expertise. We also want to know your organization's relationship with the community that you're working in, how long you've been doing the work. We want to know your organization's impact on long-term community change as it pertains to youth and their families, the financial health of your organization, your budget specific to the grant, and if curriculum was modified, we would like to know how it's modified, mainly because we know that a lot of the curriculums that are standard or existing do need some modification to be relevant to the communities that you're serving, but we would like to know if you are modifying that curriculum. And we also want to know why the intervention that you chose matches the needs of the target population that you're working with. And so that's the conclusion of the teen pregnancy prevention specific criteria. Now we're going to move into general eligibility criteria when applying for a grant at the foundation, and this is pertinent to all of our grant cycles. So you can apply to the grant to the foundation if you have nonprofit status, your government agency, a community group with a fiscal agent, and we commonly get questions about fiscal agents and community groups, and we'd be more than happy to clarify that for you in the question and answer portion. A public agency such as the library or an educational institution, county offices of education, school districts are eligible to apply. And also the services and programs have to be provided within the 6-county footprint of the foundation. Some other things related to financial health that we require of organizations to provide is we will review your 990. We also will require an external audit if your gross receipts are greater than $500,000. This is a change from last year. Last year the threshold was $300,000. We consulted some experts in the field, and they recommended that we raise that to $500,000 to maybe alleviate some of the burden on small organizations to pay for that external audit. Just so you know as well, paying for funding an audit will fall within the goals to fund for the capacity building. Other things that are considered or required is the operational budget of the organization. The board composition should reflect diverse experiences and backgrounds, and a minimum of 5 board members to apply for a grant. Also, as a best practice, none of these board members should be compensated. So some of the restrictions of things that the foundation won't fund are previously incurred expenses, fundraising by one agency on behalf of another. We don't fund endowments, and we don't fund organizations that only serve people from a single religious sect or denomination, and we also do not give grants to individuals. If you do receive a grant for the foundation, we do have some reporting requirements. And we do ask before that you apply that you go into our system, which we will be showing you later, the form, about what we are asking for. There are some pieces of data in there, demographic information of the clients that you're serving, age information, ethnic information. And we use this because we do a grantee analysis, and it helps the foundation see where the populations that we're serving. We know that in some cases it's not always appropriate to ask a person to answer all of these questions. So if you have concerns or questions about how to collect this information to meet our reporting requirements, but also to make sure that you maintain healthy relationships with your with the populations that you're serving, and that this isn't going to be a problem, that let us know, and we can we've always been able to come up with a good middle ground to still get the information, but also to be sensitive to people's needs. So organizations must be prepared to comply with the reporting requirements at the end of the grant period. You'll be asked to provide any electronic copies of news releases or media contacts that happen through the grant. And if you do not submit a final report, this could affect your eligibility to apply to the foundation again in the future. So that's the conclusion of the part that I will be sharing with you. And I'm going to hand it over now to Sandra Flores, and she's going to go over how to apply in our OGA system.
Okay. So as we transition, we're going to take a little moment to have Sarah read some of the questions, and maybe we can fill them right now in this transition. So I'm going to let Sarah read a question.
Okay, first question, would leadership development among the CBO's clients be considered part of the capacity building?
So leadership development among the clients. The intent of the capacity building grant is to fundamentally change the DNA of the organization. So I would say that each applicant should be very clear about making a compelling case on how the capacity building project will fundamentally change the DNA of the organization. You've got 12 months to do it. And so you, the applicant, would need to think about that and make the case. I will also say that we have, I believe, 45 people registered for this webinar and about 80, a little over 80 for the bidders meeting that will be held in person tomorrow. And the majority of them, like today, will be for capacity building. So this is going to be a competitive grant cycle. So you really want to make the case that you align your project in those three areas: the governance, the leadership development, and the fiscal management, fiscal and budget management. Next question, Sarah.
All right, next question. What are the allowable expenses for capacity building?
So in human services and in the other grant cycles, we do not have a cap on any allowable expenses, and I am thinking you are referring to the administrative cost or overhead. You tell us what you need to run this capacity building project. What we hope we will see, what we hope we will attract, are very concise, compelling proposals that allow the organization to bring in the expertise they need to do the hand-holding and the transition and the information and the education in a 12-month period. Or if you're applying for the 2-year grant, during the 24-month period. That's what we hope we will attract. Sarah, you want to give us one more question, and we'll go on to the second part of the meeting.
Yes. Can an organization be a lead applicant for one application and a subcontractor for another application?
Yes, they can. I will say that if you're doing that, let's say for teen pregnancy, and you have a fiscal agent that is doing it on behalf of a community group for maybe a 1-year, $25,000 grant because they want to do some type of conference, and that same agency who's serving as a fiscal agent wants to apply for the 2-year $100,000 grant. You are competing against yourself, so you will not, we won't take 2 applications from one organization. If the fiscal agent is going to serve as a fiscal agent for a 1-year capacity building for human services, and then they also want to apply for the teen pregnancy, yes, you can do that. Those are two separate pots of money, two committees reviewing proposals, and you're not competing against yourself. I hope that answers the question. Okay, so we will do more questions at the end of my portion, and please feel free to continue to submit the questions via text. And then after I'm done with my portion, we will also take questions on the phone. Okay, so we're going to let Sarah transition to the actual website, FresnoRegionalFoundation.org. As Sarah takes us there, we will go and show you where the login is on the website. So in order to apply for OLGA, you will need an OLGA login. So Sarah's going to take you to the very top of the page of our website where it has the OLGA login. There we go. And you have to complete the username and password. And if you have applied to the foundation since 2010, you're going to have a username and password. If this is your very first time, and I know we have some first-timers out there, you're going to create a username and password. So Sarah clicked the, you want to go back one slide, Sarah, to show them again where they're going to click if this is the very first time, request an account. Click the request an account, and the information is straightforward. Now, let's say that you're new to the organization and you don't know if the organization is applied. You want to go to this where we are and check existing tax identification numbers. You can put your organization's name in there and the identification number, and you can check to see if you have a login. If you don't know the login, you will have to request a new one. We cannot look it up, and we will assign you a new one. So there's that. We also strongly encourage you to use Firefox and Google Chrome. Internet Explorer does not work well with OLGA, so Firefox and Google Chrome. All right, so whether you create an account or you have a username and login, you're going to begin the process once you have your username and login. So here are the things that we want you to know about the organization profile form, which is the first step of applying to the foundation. The organization profile form is how the foundation gets to know your organization. So we have logged in, and as you see the welcome page there. Sarah is going to take us straight to My OPF and grant applications. And here you're going to see organization profile form. If you're returning, you're going to have an existing OPF, one per organization. This should not be one per year. And this organization profile form needs to be updated once a calendar year. That's January 1 through December 31st, once a calendar year. Once you've done it in a calendar year, you don't have to update it. So if any of you have applied to the Arts and Culture or the Youth Grant Cycles this year, you don't have to update this again. You go straight to your application. If you have not updated or created an organization profile form, then this is where you're going to go. So if you're updating for the first time this year, you're going to go into Edit. If you are creating one, you won't have anything in this window, and you're going to create an OPF. So we'll open the Create the OPF just so that we can see what that is. This is very straightforward. So you're going to populate everything that is requested here. And the first thing I want to bring to your attention is the fact that we have a timer up top. You will time out on both the organization profile form and the application. Please be mindful of the timer. We want to bring your attention on this. I'm not going to go through every single thing that you have to populate here. I want to take you just down to the bottom of this page, and if you're updating, the page is going to look the same, except many of these fields are going to be populated. So let's go down to the bottom of the OPF to where we get the attachments. we want to emphasize that when you're labeling these attachments, and we have spaces here for your 990, for your audited financial statements, your internal financial statements, that there are no symbols in the labeling. Olga reads them as language, and it will hold up our review process. So no symbols in the attachments. Below this, I want to bring your attention to 2 radio buttons. As I mentioned before, the timer is up top. As you're working on this document, you will continually be saving and returning for editing. You can use this radio button as a refresher page so that you don't time out and lose your information. Once you are complete and you're done, satisfied with this, you're going to switch to the radio button that says Submitted to FRF. We will not review any final OPFs or applications when we get them in the Save and Return for Editing mode. That's telling us that you're still working on it. We will review the Submitted to FRF. All right, so those are the things that I want to bring your attention to on the OPF at this time. Oh, I've got 2 more things. One more thing. So either way, whether you've submitted or you're save and returning, to view what you have populated and what you have attached, you have to get out of this. So let's save or submit. Let's pick one, Sarah, and do it. It's thinking. It will take you back to the window, the primary window. There you go. We'll have to click My OPF and Grant Applications. And you see the 2 buttons here, one that says Edit, which is what we were just in. You want to go into View to view what you have populated and what you have attached. You cannot view it in the Edit mode. So this will determine whether your save or your submission was successful. We ask you to go into View once you're all done with typing your narrative and make sure that your narrative is not cut off. Okay, so many of you work in a separate document, copy and paste it into this. You want to make sure that you haven't exceeded any word limits, and you can only do that when you're in View mode and review what has been populated and what has been attached. Okay, so briefly for the OPF, 1 OPF per organization. You create it.
For deleting the duplicate.
Yes. No duplicates at all. And you want to make sure that it's done once a calendar year. All of the notes, as you see, are archived from previous years, so do not mix up 2009 or 2010 or 2011 note. Well, you won't have a 2009. You'll have a 2010, 2011 note for the current year. No symbols in your attachments. You use your save and edit for refreshing and for you to continue to work on the document. And once you're complete, you have to select the radio button that says Submitted to FRF. Be mindful of the timer, and you have to go into the View mode to check if your work has saved. Okay, I'm going to go into the application, and we're almost at the end of this. So let's go into the application. So unlike the OPF, you may have more than 1 application here. So right below the OPF window is the grant application window. And you can go through the tabs for each of the grant cycles, and you'll see if there's an application if you've applied to us in the past. In Human Services, there could be an application in there. Do not edit that application. It's archived. You need to create a new one, and you're going to go to the Apply for the current year. Please do not edit existing applications or past applications. Okay, so let's go here. Here is the application. The things, this is straightforward again. I'm not going to go through every area that needs to be populated, but the first thing I want to bring your attention to is make certain that you have populated the grant amount and that it falls within the range of what's indicated in the goals to fund. And in this grant cycle, it's
5 to 25?
$5,000 to $25,000. That's the grant range for human services. Up to $30,000 for a 2-year grant. And for teen pregnancy, the ranges for the 1-year grant is $10,000 to $50,000, and if it's a 2-year grant, $100,000. Please align your proposals, your grant amounts, with those ranges. The second thing I want to bring your attention to, we'll have to go down to the bottom, to the lower half of this application, is the $10,000 or more to fill out the narrative attachment. So there are 2 attachments here. We're going to start with the narrative. So in this application, you have word limits in the boxes available to you to answer the question. If you're asking for $10,000 or more, we have some additional questions for you to answer, and they do not have word limits. And so here is your template. We suggest that you do not restate what you've just stated in the word-limited boxes. This portion is for you to give some additional compelling information that would enhance your limited word portion of the application. There are questions here to answer. They are not the same questions that are in the main body of the application. Okay, so there's your template. The next thing that we're going to go to is the budget template. So let's open the budget template, and if you are applying for under $10,000, here's the template. Again, make sure that the total amount requested is the same as what's in your application. And we gave an example of some line items here. You can change that however you like. This is you tell us what you need, and this should align with what we are reading in your narrative. If you're applying for $10,000 or more, look here at the bottom left corner and the second tab that says Financial History. Let's click that, Sarah. This is additional information for those of you who are applying for $10,000 or more. This is a snapshot of your financial history. In the box below the table, you will see, since this information will be used to evaluate financial trends with your organization, please explain annual differences more than 30% from one year to the next. So in the box available, you want to provide that explanation. You also want to use that box to provide any explanation with this history. Let's say 2012 is the first year that you have a 501c3, so you don't have a history. Give us that explanation. Well, our board does have access to all the financial documents you give us in the OPF. This is a snapshot for them to see while they're in the application reviewing. And if they have any questions here, they're going to go to your OPF to review your other documents more closely. Okay, so let's go back to the attachments. And again here, no symbols in any of these attachments. We want to go to the 2 radio buttons here. Save and return for editing. Same applies. You want to use a save and return for refreshing and being mindful of that timer. And then once you're done, please change the radio button to submit it to FRF. And again, if you want to see what you have submitted or populated has remained, you have to get out of edit mode and you have to go into view mode. So let's save or return or submit. Sarah, there you go. And those, when you see that box, it says you have to populate something before it'll let you save or get out of it. So here we go. In the application window here, you want to go into view to see if your attachments are there, and to read your narrative, make sure that there are no cutoffs in the narrative, and to get an overview. Okay, so a few final notes. We're going into the final report now. So I'll let Sarah take a moment to get us to the final.
And let me just say, don't do what I just did when it asked for the funding category. I just hit backwards. That will not save your application. I did that just to get out of it because I already had an application here to show you how to use the view button. So you'll need to hit that Save, Submit blue button in order to save your work.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we're going to get to the final report. So if you have received a grant from the foundation, you will see your previous applications, funded applications here. We emphasize the final report because this document is the most important piece for our grant making. So we have it available for you to review what we are requesting. So if you're not collecting the data that is on the final report, we would certainly be available to help you think about how to collect it. But ultimately, if you're not in a position to do it, then please reconsider applying, because this is the most important document for us. And this is information that will inform our future grant making and helps us assess the grant making investment for the foundation. And there are no tricky questions on here. This final report aligns with the application. And so that's there for you to review. Let's see, and then some final reminders. We want you to use the view mode. Okay, we are addressing these final reminders because these generate 95% of all phone calls, emails, and questions we get. The view mode is for viewing what you have populated and what you have attached. The edit mode is for working in the document. And also, please use Firefox and Google Chrome. Internet Explorer or other browsers will not work well with Olga. Firefox or Google Chrome. Okay, and I think we will take a moment to expand on the kinds of applications we saw last year and take some questions right now. So I'm going to let Sarah help in the transition now.
Okay, so do you have any questions, Sarah? We have a few questions, and one of them was specifically about what types of applications we have gotten in the past for human services.
Well, we haven't deviated much from the goals to fund in the last 4 years. This is our 5th year of the grant making program. And as I mentioned before, we're looking for a compelling proposal that demonstrates how the organization will use the capacity building efforts, governance, whether you're going to work with a consultant to help develop and make your board a little more sophisticated. Whatever that plan is, it essentially should be the scope of work of the consultant that you're using. So we want information on the consultant and the experience that they're doing. We want a very clear, laid out timeline and the activities within that timeline. That's going to take you from a point A to a point, B, C, and D. And we want to know how this will fundamentally enhance, enrich, improve the health of the organization.
Last year, we've also received some proposals that looked at capacity building efforts in terms of collaborative efforts. So looking maybe at a small community, for example, say Mariposa was a grantee, and they utilized a consultant to look at how they could maybe combine their back office functions of several different organizations, the youth serving organization, the local drug substance abuse program, and maybe use the same payroll. So they utilized a consultant to kind of look to see if that was an option for them. They were a small community, so they didn't really want to have redundant back office functions. So that was another example of an application that we received. A couple things that we'll share that didn't align with the goals to fund, or still don't align with goals to fund, but are common applications that we have received in the past are fundraising or development plans. Those do not align with the goals to fund. Facilities improvements or construction does not align with the goals to fund. Also general operating support. So those are 3 things in the past that we received that we have not been able to fund because of they aren't strongly aligned with what we're looking at.
We have a question for some examples of community and leadership development work.
Leadership development work could be executive coaching for your executive director. The community leadership development piece is new to us. This is something that we wanted to incorporate. One example, I guess, from experience the foundation has been able to be a part of something is that we have been able to participate in the Tulare Lake Basin Disadvantaged Community Water Study. This is a $2 million pilot project down in Tulare County that is engaging everyone from county supervisors to concerned residents. And we knew that there was some sort of desire and a need for sort of grassroots leadership development in rural communities. So the families that are affected by the lack of access to clean drinking water that are having to buy it twice, the ones that are disproportionately affected by air pollution because they live near fields that are constantly being sprayed and agricultural burning. We want opportunities for those residents to be able to have their leadership skills developed to engage in community decisions. So those are examples. Those are just some of the things that we have seen, but it's not limited to just that. But we're interested in seeing how opening this kind of new door in terms of the community leadership development and what you all will come up with.
We have a couple of questions about what we mean by our unincorporated communities. Can we please name a few as examples? And also in our TPP requirements, we reference hotspot zip codes.
Unincorporated communities would be a Cutler-Rosie, it would be a Seville, it would be a Easton. They don't have a city government, so there's not as many resources available in those communities.
And Sarah, will you restate the teen pregnancy? It was the hotspot question. So on the teen, on our website, so Sarah, you might want to go to our TPP addendum on the grant making page. Let's give Sarah a moment to get there. So on the Human Services Grant Cycle tab, once you get to the grant making page, so Sarah, we're on the main page right now. We're going to go to grant making. We're on Human Services. On that, you will see below the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Addendum. And I believe at the bottom of this, we should have some resources for you. So if you go to the FRFT website, there's a page there. There's a link at the first bullet, and we should have some hotspot data there. So it's provided by, I believe, the California Department of Public Health and a few other places. So is it letting you go down? So you'll see some videos, you'll see some research, but we have teen births in California, adolescents, so let's see here, and I believe it's going to be, it's above, these are the curriculums. So on here, the Guide to Adolescence Data Sources in California, Adolescent Sexual Health, you will find what you need in terms of the hotspots in those documents. Okay, next question, Sarah.
All right. Will you fund 100% of a project, or do you prefer matching funds?
We will fund 100% of the project, and we will accept matching funds. We rely on applicants to tell us what they need and what their assets are. You're making the compelling case in a competitive grant-making program. I think we'll take one more question and then open up the lines to take your questions over the phone.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple of questions asking about what types of organizations we consider human services, so maybe we need to clarify what types of organizations are eligible in this cycle.
So when we started this grant-making program 5 years ago, we created the Human Services Grant area because it was going to be an umbrella, kind of a catch-all of all things, all types of organizations. So organizations that serve animals, they serve environment, it's a catch-all umbrella for the types of organizations. we really focused on the types of funding priorities in focusing on capacity building. So those are the projects, those are the priority of the grant cycle. But all organizations would be eligible to apply. There's not a type of organization.
All right, and I apologize we can't get to everybody's question. We do have a lot of questions coming in. Let's go ahead and take a few questions over the audio. So I see a hand raised by Sue Ruiz. Sue, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your microphone. So if you want to go ahead and ask your question. Sue, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Okay, there it is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have two, but you don't have to answer them both. Mostly the 2-year grant program, how does that look different than the 1-year? Could, for example, in the leadership development, could 1 year be used to, for example, research experts that are out there and programs that are out there for a year, pay somebody to do that, and then the 2nd year actually implement that expert within the community? Is that a type of a 2-year program you'd be looking at?
Hi, Sue. This is Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
I would say that you want to make a compelling case, and if it's going to take you a year to identify a consultant, based on the applications that we've received in the past, it's not going to be competitive. So you want 2 years to do ongoing work, and the framework we have in mind is sometimes when dealing with boards, it's 1 year of learning and convening together, going through workshops, getting new information on how to lead an organization, understanding their roles, and then year 2 is about implementing everything that they have learned, honed in on, that type of thing.
I guess that's what I'm asking, that in some ways in terms of community development, leadership development in a community, the 1st year would be the learning year and the 2nd year would be the implementation year.
Right. But your question was more along, initially I understood you saying looking for what you're going to do or the consultant to use for that. But if you have clarity on the work, I think that is the most compelling piece. Clarity on what you're going to do, the time frame to do it in, and who's leading it, what's their expertise and their experience in leading you down this journey.
So I think it might be also helpful to think of maybe year 1 as in planning, but really actually, doing a lot. There should be a lot of activity going on in the planning, and year 2 is thinking of implementation. I think, research could be a component, but that should be a little bit more compressed than maybe an entire year.
Okay.
I will also say, I think any of the 2-year grants, that would be for this capacity building grant and for all teen pregnancy prevention grants, there will be a site visit. So we will be going out and triangulating what has been in the proposal, what the foundation has funded, and assessing the progress. So I don't think any organization wants to be in a position to say that they haven't, especially in that 1st year, not progressed as close to the timeline that has been submitted.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah, you want to take another question?
Yes, thank you, Sue. All right, we only have one other hand up. This is Patricia. Patricia, do you still have questions? I just unmuted your line. Patricia Wells.
Are
you there, Patricia? Sarah, why don't you take another question that's been sent to us? Let's give Sarah a moment here to transition.
Okay, let's see. We've covered some of these, so excuse me for sorting through them really quick. Do symbols include the ampersand sign, percent sign, dollar sign? Yes, everything, all of the above. That none of the symbols. It needs to be all letters and numbers.
And if you can also try to minimize the use of parentheses and quotations, our system doesn't read those either, so it kind of just throws us off when we run across them. So it'll make your application a little bit more fluid if you don't include a lot of parentheses.
There's a question, approximately how many human services grants will be awarded?
We have $120,000, and the grant ranges are 5 to 25.
With the possibility of a 30. So last year we had 10. Considering the grant range has been upped, and we've also added the larger 2-year, the possibility of the larger 2-year award, we can anticipate probably fewer. My best guess would say 6 to 8, but could be lower. And just to give you some kind of just some scope as far as the field was, last year we received 50 applications and we funded 10. And this year we have seen a lot of interest and might feel that we might be receiving more applications.
There's a couple of questions in here about your Olga accounts and profile, your OPFs. If you have specific questions about that, go ahead and send me an email, and I will reply to you personally, and we'll get it figured out.
I think the takeaway for all our applicants this year is that we want to address kind of recurring questions. So the symbols, the view mode, the it timed out on me, I thought I saved it. So the timer, we hope, will alleviate a lot of those timeouts and losing information. But aside from that, sometimes there are other questions. The staff is here to answer those questions. The closer we get to the deadlines, so the OPF deadline is August 3rd, and then the application deadline is August 10th, we get more and more calls, so we will take those in the order of either the email submission or as soon as we possibly can if you're leaving voice messages. So we encourage you to get started on this process soon and not wait till the last minute, so that if you have any questions, we can get to those questions in a very timely manner. And we also want to make the experience positive for you, so the tips on Google Chrome and Firefox will help that experience to be positive. And if you're mindful about the tips that we went over, it will eliminate a lot of the anxiety in this process. Okay, Sarah?
Okay, maybe lastly, let's go ahead and address this. There's been several questions. If we can describe in more detail what capacity building means.
Okay, so we're focused on leadership, governance, and fiscal management. So capacity building for the foundation, as we've selected those areas, is our interest in seeing organizational health. We understand our role as a community foundation is to attract resources and increase our resources in grant making and other giving in the community. But we also recognize that another way to attract resources to this region is if our organizations are performing at a highest level and their health is intact. So focusing in this area, an area that does not have a lot of dollars allocated to it, is our way of helping organizations, the vehicle that you're using to run services, provide programming, that vehicle, the organization structure, is healthy. And moving an organization from good to great, whether it's in your governing body, the decision-making body, your board, whether it's your executive leadership, whether it's your fiscal health, all of those primary areas are the areas that we see are vital to the health of an organization that will build donor and funder confidence to invest in you. The foundation has limited dollars, and so we have to think in terms of how do we partner with larger foundations and partners with greater resources? That could be a donor, that could be a larger foundation. Natalie, you want to add to that?
Yes, and just kind of the new addition this year with the community leadership development as well. We're looking at long-standing leaders in the community, residents that have lived there and will continue to live there for a long time, who might be one of the few only champions that can step up and take a stronger role in some of the decision-making processes, things like that. So on the organizational strength side, how do we build confidence? In the community side too, who are going to be the go-to people that are going to be there for a really long time, that are going to be able to serve rural communities?
Okay, I hope that answers your question. I think we're coming close to the end of this. We may take one more question, if Sarah has one. Again, you can email us and give us a call. We will have a bidders meeting in person tomorrow at the Woodward Library at 11 o'clock, I believe. And this webinar will be on our website in a few days. And let's see if Sarah has one more question for us. Well, the outcome will be what exactly had been done. So if your board has gone through a year of development, that is the outcome. We want to hear from your board about the experience, about the journey. And we know it's critical. Our foundation has gone through the process of capacity building. And it has allowed the organization to take on more work, have a greater community leadership role in the community. So we know the value of that type of work, and so that is the actual outcome. Whatever it is that you've been focused on for the year in the leadership side, the development or the community side, or the board side, or you were able to get your financial health to a higher level.
Yeah, your outcomes can be stated as the steps you're taking to do that. So if you have if you want to develop your board, how many retreats did you attend? How many meetings did the board have? Did they have follow-up conversations? Things like that can also be included. And it's organizations don't need to get fixated on a big number. When we have the service box, it can be one. It could just be that one service. It could be that external audit, and you have one service. We just want clarity on just the impact that work has had, and if you can share information on the trainings that were held, community trainings, community meetings, that would be helpful as well.
I will also add, when you're doing the audit, it could be one service, but the foundation goes through audits every year. We know that one service is a 2-month duration. So they're camped out, the auditors are camped out in our building, and they're going through documents, they're making recommendations, and so that's all part of your outcome. We want to know what new practice will be put in place as a result of your auditors coming in and reviewing and providing their final recommendations. So I think that is the #1 transition for capacity building is ultimately our organization serves 5,000 people. And we know that you serve the community. This has to focus on your board or your staff. So those are going to be lower numbers. We know in the end, if your organization is stronger, you're going to serve more people. But for this purpose, you're going to hone in on either your 7-member board, your 12-member board, however, or your 5-member executive staff, or maybe it's your 2-member executive staff. It's going to be very focused. Sarah?
Yes, there's one more question I did want to bring up. We did get a comment, but improved physical health could a request for training or a grants developer be responsible?
No, a grants developer goes more aligned with fund development. Fiscal and budget management, fiscal management has to do with what practices need to be in place to raise the accountability of your financial management. It's those practices that increase donor confidence. So the transparency, the triangulation, There are some fundamental practices in management of an organization, fiscal management of organization, that should be in place that increase donor and funder confidence. And those are the things that we are interested in funding. Natalie?
Right now, when resources are pretty strapped and funds are getting more competitive, the fiscal management really looks at what are you doing with what you have, and really kind of being a little bit more introspective about how to make that as healthy as possible, and instead of gaining more funds, seeking more funds.
All right. If there are more questions, we don't have time to go over everything. So it will be on your screen. If you want to email us your questions, we will get them answered.
Okay, everybody. So thank you for taking time to join us on our first webinar. It's something that we will continue to do for each grant cycle. And as Sarah mentioned, if you have any further questions, please email them to us. And some of you may be able to join us tomorrow at the bidders meeting. You are more than welcome to join us. And Natalie will have one more thing to say.
Just again, thank you, and just also wanted to let you know that we're going to be following up with a very, very brief SurveyMonkey survey, and if you could please just click a couple buttons for us, just let us know how the webinar was for you today, if this is something helpful for you, and how we can help refine it and make it more useful for you in the future. So again, thank you very much, and if you have more specific questions, please feel free to email us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.